At exactly 8:12 that morning, I watched a logging truck roll down my quiet suburban street and crush a pearl-white Range Rover across my gate like it was nothing more than a soda can. The sound of metal folding neighbors gasping and the shrill scream of our HOA president created a moment I'll never forget. And here's the thing, you'd think this was the ending of a crazy story. But it was only the climax of a nightmare I'd been living in for months. One that all started with something as simple as a gate at the end of my driveway. My name is Rowan Beck. I'm 39, a homeowner, and the kind of guy people would probably call boring in the best possible way. I alphabetize the screws in my toolbox. I keep a spreadsheet of every light bulb in my house. I'm not the type who looks for conflict. If anything, I avoid it. I moved to Foxglove Estates because it promised peace tree-lined streets, rustic elegance, a place where neighbors waved and lawns stayed neat. What they didn't tell me was that beneath the manicured hedges lurked an HOA president who thought she was a queen ruling over a suburban kingdom. Her name was Belinda Caro, blonde, always in Pilates leggings, the type who talked like bylaws were scripture and property values were her personal religion. If you've ever met a Karen, you know the type. Belinda was the final boss version. She measured grass height with a ruler. She once sent out a violation notice because a neighbor's mailbox tilted 2 degrees to the left. When she saw the gate I installed at the end of my driveway, she looked at me like I had built a fortress wall against her empire. From that day forward, she was obsessed. She started small, parking her Range Rover directly across my gate, claiming it was just for a second. A second in HOA time, 47 minutes minimum. She'd sit there windows down playing classical music loud enough you'd think she believed culture seeped through the air. Then came the violation letters, slid under my fence, stuffed in my mailbox, written in a tone that could make a federal agent blush. She accused me of running commercial operations because I had delivery trucks like every other house. She even called the sheriff twice, reporting me for potting tomatoes. Tomatoes. That was apparently a crime against community aesthetics. At first I tried patience. I documented everything, called the deputy when she blocked my driveway, smiled politely while she scolded me about my performative wheelbarrow. But slowly it wore me down. Every morning, like clockwork at 7:58, her Range Rover would roll up blocking me in. She'd lift her phone recording my reaction, daring me to lose my temper so she could use it against me at the next board meeting. It wasn't just annoying, it was suffocating. My own home no longer felt like mine. Then came the storm. A brutal weather system ripped through, taking down 2 massive black pine trees behind my property. Each one so wide 3 people holding hands couldn't wrap around them. The city tagged them for removal, gave us 2 weeks. I knew Belinda would circle like a shark if I slipped up, so I did everything by the book. Hired a licensed crew, got permits from the city, and yes, even the HOA itself. I emailed the board, posted notices online, printed and delivered them to every house, including hers. My paperwork folder was thick enough to stop a bullet. Her response, a 17-paragraph manifesto. She declared an emergency beautification committee meeting. Scheduled it for Wednesday, one day after my Tuesday removal permit. It was deliberate sabotage wrapped in bureaucratic nonsense. Tuesday morning came, and the air felt charged like the final round of a prize fight. At 7:58 sharp, Belinda's Range Rover took its position across my gate, but this time she'd upgraded her stunt. A laminated sign on her windshield, Comic Sans font no less, read, "Gate closed for aesthetic review." She sipped her oat milk latte like she'd just won. I stood there holding my permits while the logging truck rumbled into view at 8:12. The thing was a beast, 3 axles diesel growl, the kind of truck that didn't come to play. The driver tapped his horn politely. Belinda climbed out of her SUV, tablet in hand, and marched up to the cab. She recited HOA bylaws like incantations, voice shrill enough to make dogs bark 3 streets over. The crew leader, calm as a man who'd dealt with 1,000 difficult customers, asked her to move. She refused. That was the moment I broke inside. I remember standing there thinking maybe I should just give up. Maybe she's right. Maybe I'm the one out of place here. The weight of every citation, every nasty email, every humiliating blockade had piled up until I honestly wondered if I was the crazy one. Was my gate worth this? Was I fighting a war I couldn't win? For a second I considered walking away. Let the trees rot. Let her win. But then Deputy Martinez arrived. He'd been to our street enough times to know the drill. He checked my permits, flipped through my folder, nodded. Then he looked at her Range Rover. Not only was she blocking my driveway, she was parked squarely across a fire access lane and a utility easement. It wasn't just petty anymore. It was dangerous. Martinez told her she needed to move immediately. She spun on her heels, stormed back to her SUV, and realized she'd locked her keys and phone inside. Her recording her smug evidence was trapped inside that car with her oat milk latte. I almost laughed, but I held it in. While she sputtered, the truck driver tried to maneuver. The street was narrow, not designed for industrial equipment. He eased forward, back forward again. Then it happened. The log cradle, extending slightly as he turned, caught her Range Rover's front panel. The sound wasn't a crash, it was a slow, agonizing crunch. Metal folding, glass popping. The Range Rover crumpled like paper. Belinda shrieked something about vehicular homicide against a British national, which made zero sense. She demanded the driver's insurance license, blood type, maybe even his horoscope. The driver just shrugged and pointed at the deputy. Neighbors poured out like it was a block party. Phones up recording. Someone live-streamed it to the neighborhood Facebook group. Comments lit up like fireworks. Years of frustration with Belinda's reign spilled out in real time. Deputy Martinez went into full official mode. Body cam rolling photos, snapped permits verified. He pulled up the HOA's own property map, showing my gate as emergency access. The insurance adjuster showed up unimpressed and noticed her registration was 3 months expired. Neighbors eagerly shared footage of her blocking an ambulance last fall, threatening mailbox privileges, even emailing fines for non-compliant dreams. And then came the crown jewel, Belinda's own phone recording recovered from her locked SUV, where she gleefully narrated her plan to teach that gate-loving libertarian a lesson. That night's HOA meeting was standing room only. Someone hooked a laptop to the projector, and suddenly we were watching Belinda's greatest hits reel. Every petty abuse of power, every ridiculous stunt culminating in her SUV folding under a logging truck. The board voted unanimously to suspend her. Even Harold, who normally agreed with her just to avoid being targeted, raised his hand without hesitation. Her self-appointed titles, Director of Aesthetic Compliance, Vice Chair of Lawn Uniformity, all 12 of them vanished from the HOA website by the end of the meeting. But her punishment didn't stop there. The city fined her $3,000 for obstructing an emergency easement. The fire marshal added $1,500 for the fire lane. The insurance company denied her claim entirely, citing expired registration and willful negligence. The total damage, $42,000. When she heard the number, Belinda went pale. She opened her mouth like a fish, silent, stunned, and for the first time I saw her without power. I didn't cheer. I didn't gloat. I just felt a weight lift off me. For months, she'd tried to break me, to make me question myself, to convince me my own property wasn't mine to control. But that night, in front of the entire neighborhood, she crumbled under the very rules she'd weaponized against everyone else. And that's when I realized something important. Tyrants don't always fall to rebellion or violence. Sometimes they collapse under the weight of their own arrogance.